scare him away.
All right, here we go. Here we go. What are we? What are we? When are we? What is it? It's Saturday, March 29th. Hope a whole bunch of you are out doing something fun. Doing something really good. What am I doing? Well, I was going to finish caping out my mule deer cape that I had rolled up in a ball in the freezer, and the sucker's still frozen. It's that chilly out here still. Maybe hopefully by later on today I'll be able to do that. And it's pouring rain again, so I was going to take Sarah and the dog. We're going to go hike a different area and see what we could find, but it's really miserable right now. And then a quick side note for yesterday's video where we went. If you Google it or Google up Sasquatch and Horn Lake Caves, you'll probably come up with a handful of incidents there. Well, that was really close to where we were yesterday. For the curious. What else? I think I mentioned yesterday, Sarah's hats are on sale this weekend. These two right here are on sale in her store. Link at the bottom. Did that. Now, quick news. I spoke with, remember? What was it, last week? I did a rerun of those timber cruisers from Alberta. Remember? Lengthy information experience directly from them, and I just got a real big email reply from them. So, looks like it might be on again for me to go join them. And these guys, I think I have to read the whole email. It's a long one. I read a bunch of it this morning and replied to them already. In the email is a whole slew of events, sightings, apparently a family was attacked by a group of these beings in Alberta, and they went to the exact location. I think so they wanted to take me there too. Anyway, these fellas, why I have interest in these guys is they are very intelligent guys who spend a lot of time in the remote zones that I have and do. Same flavor. They are not affiliated with any Bigfoot groups. Not that's a bad thing, I believe. I'll just leave it at that. I don't think it's a bad thing. I'm just saying these guys know what's up. They're running around the woods remote for a living, just as I have. They spend more time, more connected to the real world than not. And they have no influence over them by anybody. When it comes to this topic and more, they got no influence but their own selves, their own brains, and they know what they're seeing and they know what they're listening to. And it sounds like they're compiling everything they have learned and watched and observed, and they're putting it into a book. That's going to be very interesting. So they sent me a lot today. I'll have to go over it, and I replied real quick and just said, hey, I'll be in touch shortly. Told them my schedule, my upcoming schedule, see if I can pull off meeting up with those guys and going to some of these places. And then also I asked if there's anything in that long email I could share with you guys. So I'm waiting on that reply, and we'll find out soon, and I will share, obviously. I share everything I can with you guys. It's my main priority. So we're going to hear from Bobby Short, but I better check the inbox here first real quickly. I think there's always something there, but I can't remember what went down this morning with that coffee. All right, there's two I copied and pasted two fresh ones this morning, but then I got caught up in the fella's email from Alberta, and I gobbled her up. So I'll read these, and I'm going to go right at Bobby Short this morning. This is titled, I Believe. Hello, my name is Barbara. Live and from Alabama, Roll Tide. Just saying hello and thanks for your show to let people know that they have a voice. My story is short. I'm 63 now, and when I was 10 years old, Easter Sunday weekend, visiting my grandmother in Sawyerville, Alabama, and it's very rural, not too far from the Black Warrior River. My grandmother used to walk to the river and fish at Sawyerville, which is an hour and a half from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Playing with my cousins there was a cornfield behind my grandmother's house. It was 5 of us playing. I'm at the back of the house. First, I heard a moan, didn't pay it any attention, coming out of the cornfield. Then there was rocks being thrown at me. So, me thinking this is my cousin and siblings, I said, "Who throwing rocks at me?" But everyone was in front of the house. I didn't start putting two and two together until 25 years ago of my experience as a child, because I was planning on taking an Alaska cruise and tour, and my younger brother said, "If I take the tour, I'll be kidnapped and Bigfoot will make me his wife, LOL." And I have a question for you and your viewers. Do they ever associate a rainstorm after seeing one of the forest people? The reason I ask is because I was watching the show and they found 3 nests, large nests. As soon as they found them, a rainstorm came up in the mountains and they had to leave. Again, thanks for the show. There's no one I can talk to other than my younger brother, who is 10 years younger than me, being a 63-year-old black woman in Alabama. Some people I share with don't believe. It's not real. They say again. Thanks, I'll be sending some more emails about experiences people have told me. All right, thank you and I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely looking forward to it. Rain. I don't know if you mentioned you watching something and it was about rain and finding nests, or finding them and rain happening. You mentioned mountains and rain in the same sentence. So for me, being a mountain boy, mountain weather is usually quite different than flatland weather. Mountain weather is unpredictable, and it can rain, it can snow anytime. One time, the Alaska Highway was shut down in July from a snow dump, the highest point. So, and I don't know why people would leave because it starts raining, you know? Unless there's real nasty rain and cold temperatures, but I mean, it's raining all day yesterday. We just put on our rain jackets and kept going. But I'm looking forward to you sending more. Big time. I think I've been on that same river you mentioned in your email too. Please email back. There's another one. Do grizzlies roar loudly? As in doing this over and over many times? No. Do they roar loudly? My first-hand experience of a bear roaring, I've heard they're fairly vocal at times, huffing, puffing. When they're fighting, they can obviously sound a little gnarly. That's easy to find online. But I'll tell you one time of direct first-hand knowledge of one roaring, possibly at me, maybe, probably. Years ago, I was skirting around a very remote property field. They had a bone pile out back. They had a bunch of roadkill caribou, dead horse, dead cow piled up back there, and grizzlies had been hammering on it. And we were hunting grizzlies. And it was a long time ago. And we were down on the river, circling around a huge, wide circle around this property. Like, we're talking, I was probably, could have been 500 yards away from the back of their fence where their bone pile was, and we're out on the river. And then I remember saying, oh, the wind's going to go straight into where all those bears are any second now. Because we're looking in the ground, looking in the snow to see if there's any huge grizzlies around yet. And as soon as that wind shifted and went towards the back end of the property, we definitely heard a grizzly roar, like a roar. But nothing to make you go, holy shit, what was that? So like, it was more like a, oh, did you hear that grizzly? And that's the only time I've ever heard a grizzly be vocal. He was probably a big, old, we did find a huge grizzly print too, and I got that print on video. I videotaped that pile of shrapnel, and I videotaped grizzly bears on it. And I videotaped my foot beside a massive print. And while I was making that video as well, that same time of day, I heard the roar. But it's not like what people describe here. Nothing. You couldn't even describe it the way people describe what they're hearing as a roar here. I mean, it's just oh, wow, did you hear that grizzly? There you go. So, here we go. Hello, Steve. I hope you're doing well. I've been listening to your channel for about 2 years now, and it's been a great source of knowledge about the Sabe people, especially the information that you get from the Owl Man and several others, such as yourself and the Arizona crew. A little about my background. I grew up in a small country, East Texas town, where Gossip is gold and at the hair salon, lol. I'll say, Sarah owned a hairstyling business, and the goop that came out of there was incredible. We lived outside of town in the country, so I was able to grow up hunting, camping, and fishing from an early age. Fast forward 12 years in the early 90s, I was guiding a mule deer hunter in the area between Wapiti, Wyoming, and Yellowstone Park. It was about 20 minutes before sunset, and we began to hear a loud roar. This sounded like a bear. This roar was loud, but was not close. It was echoing throughout the forest, but it seemed to be oddly loud. So, after a long roar, it would be about 30 seconds to a minute, and the roar would happen again. A long, loud roar over and over. We decided to start working back towards our truck and trailer. We were also, excuse me, we were also on horseback, and the horses were ready to leave as well. After hearing some recordings of the Sabe being vocal, I've heard some recordings that sound very similar. There's also reports about encounters in this area of Wyoming. So, do grizzly bears roar over and over again? I'm 55 years young, still guiding, riding. Thank you for all you and Sarah do. Would love to come on a fishing trip sometime. Sincerely, Lance Ricketson. Lance? No, they don't. You probably know that, though, being where you are. And you know what? Here's another thing with horses. I mean, I can't speak for... sorry. I can't speak for you guys around there and horses, but I can speak for northern British Columbia, cowboying and horses. And here's an example. I have been riding down the trail on top of huge, brand spanking new grizzly bear walking ahead of me down the trail. And we're talking along a creek bed, so it's big, mature cottonwoods with obviously the willow underneath and the willow and shit. So you can't, and there's spruce. I mean, max visibility straight ahead down the trail. Sometimes 25 yards as I'm looking across the creek crossing, because the creek snakes down the bottom of the tight valley, and I'm crossing the creek, going through the brush, crossing the creek, going through the brush, cross the creek about 9 times to get to where we're going. Wind is at my back. But the horses are obviously smelling this bear on the trail. But they're not really concerned. They don't really give a shit. Just ride along. Like that. And you could see his wet footprints on the rock when he was crossing the riverbed too. And I'm looking and you could see where he'd stop on the rocks and turn around. Facing me to see if he could see me yet. And you just keep on walking along. Horses didn't really give a flying shit. And then another time, I had a guy behind me on the horse riding side hilling in a burned off hill, so you know how thick that is. And the burn was probably 12 years old or something. And like the thick willow and everything is just so thick. And it was absolutely pissing rain. Couldn't hear nothing from all the leaves. It was early September, so they're still kind of green. And side hilling this way, going that way. And what used to be just like a tiny little creek drain like that long, right beside me, about another 5 yards downhill from the side trail I'd cut earlier. And this is going uphill slightly. It was raining so hard for so long that little tiny little dirt drain was a raging creek about 3 feet wide right now, flooding, just ripping. To give you an example of the noise. Wind is in my face. I'm in the front, obviously nowhere to turn around. All of a sudden, this grizzly bear, I've shared this on here in the past, this frickin' grizzly bear walks out onto the trail, and think about how thick it is. I'm looking down on the ass of this huge grizzly bear. Well, I should say huge. It's a mature bear. I don't think too many people describe a grizzly bear without using the word huge. Right? So anyway, there's a big grizzly bear, big mature bear. I'm looking down on it. You know, usually you look along the trail. Oh, there's a grizzly bear on the trail right there. I'm looking down on this ass. It's that close to me. I'm like, holy shit. What does my horse do? Ears perk up, just watching the bear. Just like that. And she was biting clumps of grass as she's going along in that trail. But for the most part, her head was concealed from her big butt. Where, so, excuse me, she took about 3 steps. And now she's farther away from me. And this little frickin' Nerf fuzzy football bear cub comes and steps out and gets on the trail right under the chin of my frickin' horse. I'm looking down at this thing going, oh my God, I'm done. I'm between a sow and her tiny, tiny cub, and it's closer to me than the sow. And she's still walking away with her big fat ass covering view from me, and she can't hear shit because of the raging water and the rain hitting the leaves and the wind in our face. Horse is just still going like this. What's that? Right? And then the little bugger's looking up at me, and I feel like going to him, don't say anything. Please don't say anything. And then I start backing my horse up. The horse starts backing up. I look back. Thank God my friend and hunter behind me was a professional rodeo guy from the States. And he had no problem backing his horse up. Backing up. Everything went slow motion. Spun the horse around on that trail. And frickin', as soon as I had my back to that, I think my feet were sore from kicking that horse to get it to go faster, ripping down. It was like the dudes from Snowy River, ripping down that mountain. What I'm getting at is, you said your horses are ready to go. From my experience, and those are some of the closer ones, horses don't give a shit about the bears. But it's the moose they do. Like I said that earlier, when we have moose on the trail, they're like... because the moose always try to mount them and torment them during the fall and at nighttime and on the trail. They don't like the moose. They don't give a shit about the grizzlies up here, for the most part. But I think you know what it was, my man. I think you know what it was. Oh, I better... here's one more. And then we'll hear from Bobby. My name is... There's no name. My name is, comma. I lived and hunted all over Alaska, seen lots of country, mostly in the Yukon flats, back in 1995. We were up on the Tanana River. About 196 river miles moose hunting on the Wood River. Me, my ex, and her dad, it was about 9:30, and we were drifting down the river looking for any sign. When we came around a bend in the river, we heard a loud growl. Didn't sound like a bear, but like someone trying to growl, but 10 times louder. Then I saw it hop up a 12-foot bank like it was nothing. It was about 10 foot, 11 foot tall, and as I tried to get a picture, we hit a stump in the water. It knocked me down and I fell over. I heard a gun go off, then feathers fly out by me. I look at my girlfriend's dad, and he had a look on his face like, oh shit, I didn't mean that. When we hit the stump, we all fell over. My girlfriend's dad shot his .30-06 accidentally. The look on his face, man, I was about to blast him back. But anyways, this Bigfoot was looking at us. What the hell was we doing? The hair was about 3 inches long and around his face. And just like that, he was gone. We looked at one another. What the F was that? So we started back up the river to camp. When we were almost there, we can see some of our stuff in the river. And we can see something was throwing our camping stuff all over the place. So I let one go over the camp and everything stopped. We got all of our camping gear back together. We made camp again later that night. And then we can smell something stinky. And once in a while we can see eyes glowing in the trees. We sang a NDN song to him and he left us alone after that. Maybe an Indian song to him after that, and he left us alone after that. I could still go out that way looking, but not for a hairy man. End of story. Whoa. That's pretty alarming, right? That's a little bit of a nerve-wracker. Saw a Sasquatch and almost got killed. Wow. Well, if you're still hanging out here, man, you got anything else you want to share? If anybody else around there, I want to hear from them. hear from you and let me know. Glad you didn't get whacked. Holy shit. I almost got shot a few times. Twice for sure, maybe 3. It sucks almost getting shot by a high power rifle. Close range. Now, clean these suckers. While I'm doing this, kind of funny this morning. Sarah brought me my shot of ivermectin this morning. I forget what her reasoning is, why we're taking it right now. But anyways, then I had to go to the bathroom and I was kind of joking with her. Oh, I got some parasites, gotta come out. I was kind of laughing. Then all of a sudden I clued into something. I go, hey, you remember during COVID, they stopped and prevented access to ivermectin for basically the planet? She's like, yeah. And I go, you know the funny part about that is? It's human parasites that didn't want the ivermectin spread around the globe. Because it kills parasites. Funny, isn't it? But true. Alright, now this is from the late, great Bobby Short. Alright, here we go. New Sasquatch family arrives in Bluff Creek. Interesting title. In October 1958, California, road building contractor Ray Wallace found human-like droppings the size of those of a 1,200-pound horse might leave. Interestingly, a similar pile of droppings were found and filmed by Renee Hinden on Blue Creek Mountain Road and on the sandbar at Bluff Creek in 1967. Wilbur Shorty Wallace, Ray's brother, found an unopened full 55-gallon oil drum carried to the edge of the road and thrown down the hill. He also found a 20-foot length of 18-inch metal culvert carried some distance away, and a 700-pound tire and wheel for a carryall, which had been rolled for a quarter mile, then hurled into a ravine. Seems like the Bluff Creek 7 were very angry about the new road. Highway 96 being cut through their territory, no doubt. Seems like the Bluff Creek 7 were very angry about the new road. 7 or Sasquatch. In July 63, Dave Blake found big footprints all around where a barrel of diesel fuel was thrown off the side of the road in the road construction region of Bluff Creek, California. In August of that same year, Bigfoot tracks approximately 15 inches long are found at Bluff Creek logging operations, with boxes of spikes thrown around and a stick of dynamite bitten into. The anger, frustration, and displeasure of the Sasquatches in that region did not go unnoticed. What was a pristine, tranquil region had been upended by the noise and diesel smoke generated by large machinery required for cutting roads in that region. The Sasquatch undoubtedly were alarmed by the intrusion. Nearly 20 years of this kind of behavior was recorded in around Bluff Creek from the late 1940s to 1967. Then suddenly after 1967, it all stopped. For nearly 45 years, there was no mention of Bigfoot activity in the region of Bluff Creek drainage. No sign of the former familiar tracks ever surfaced again. What happened to the makers of those 7 tracks? After putting up with all that goes with cutting a new road through their territory, would the resident Sasquatch just up and leave? I don't think so, because their tracks never showed up elsewhere. What happened to the famous 7 Sasquatches of Bluff Creek fame? Whatever the cause, life does rejuvenate itself. And recently, a brand new tracks were found in the drainage of Bluff Creek between the Notice Creek Bridge and the Bluff Creek Bridge. Not all the tracks were measured because there were hundreds all over the place. It was like a new tribe of Sasquatch had moved in and had themselves a powwow. The substrate was hard-packed, making exact measurements difficult. Ken Iddins, I-D-D-I-N-S, Ken Iddins, and M.K. Davis located a clear track set quite deep in the sandy loam of Bluff Creek that measured 14 by 6 on June 10th, 2012. The tractor found 1/4 mile upstream from the Patterson site. It was one of dozens of different size, newly discovered Sasquatch tracks under 14 inches in size. Along on that trip was Dawn Monroe, seen in the first photograph waiting for the plaster to harden in one of the tracks that they poured that week. It was a baby track measuring 6 inches long. It is encouraging testimony that new life continues on with the new tracks and a new resident family of Sasquatches living in the Bluff Creek drainage. It was thrilling to learn about this turn of events and new life being reborn in Northern California. Then, as Davis and Idens hiked further up the road, it became apparent that they were being followed by juvenile Sasquatches racing along Bluff Creek Road just out of sight. Coming around a turn in the road, Davis figured they surprised the juveniles, who then ducked under this yearling Douglas fir tree. Davis snapped the photo below, showing the partial hand sticking out from the tree's skirt. What? Davis snapped the photo below, showing the partial... Am I missing a photo here? There's those. They're all black and white. And I think we're missing one, but here is... It's going to be tough. But I'll do it. There you go. Whoops. Right about there. How's that? So there's the 6-inch print by his hat. Other numerous prints in the other photo I'm imagining. Okay, you got that? And then when I turn the page, it appears there's a photo missing. Alright? So I'm guessing that's possibly where the... Yeah, photo, film out. Okay, that's probably the missing photo. It was also determined on that same trip that not only had the gates to Bluff Creek been closed and locked by the U.S. Forestry in the fall of 2011, but that the forestry is showing a new determination to keep cars and bikers out of the region. There isn't much they can do to keep hikers out, but it's one whale of a hike from there into Bluff Creek. The forestry built 4-foot-tall berms across Bluff Creek Road and brought in heavy machinery to chisel plow massive ditches across the road to prevent motor scooter access. The reason given by forestry is, of course, the false notion that vehicles spread Port Orford cedar root rot disease. What? Let me read that again. The reason given by forestry is, of course, the false notion that vehicles spread Port Orford cedar root rot disease. But so do bears. The cedar fungus has been around for thousands of years. Why close and lock gates at this late date? Dig ditches and build berms. Isn't the horse is already out of the barn? One forestry official told Davis that, quote, "You could all be killed," end quote. A woman's remains have been uncovered in the area. Sounds like something else is going on and only the U.S. Forestry knows what it is. I could find no press coverage of a woman being killed in Bluff Creek by bears. Even by bears, sorry. The following photos were generously provided by M.K. Davis, showing a 4-foot berm blocking vehicle access up Bluff Creek Road. Further on up the road, where the trio hiked, they found a machine-carved channel cutting across the road, essentially blocking motorbike access into the Bluff Creek drainage. Yep, that's a deep cut. I doubt that the prevention methods employed by the forestry will keep out visitors to the famous Bluff Creek region, but only the hardiest souls will make the entire trip. It's a long way in on foot. It was heartwarming to learn that there were new tracks being cast, including a newborn generation of Sasquatches in the area. It was a long time coming. M.K. Davis, I spoke with M.K. over the phone for quite a while back. He's a good guy. I like him. Straight shooting dude. What should we read next? This next entry by Bobby is titled "Rocking Vans and Campers and Kicking Tires." There remains an old story out of Trinity County, California. Mike Gordon, while sleeping in his Dodge van at Grey Falls Campground, woke up at around midnight because a Bigfoot was kicking his tires and rocking his van violently. Mike said he could see the Bigfoot's hairy, bearded chin, chest, and hand through the van's windows. The Bigfoot, approximately 8 feet tall, continued to harass the van off and on until finally Mike blew the car's horn. Then it stopped. The source of that story, the late Fred Bradshaw, also told another story about the behavior of trailer rocking in Pierce County, Washington State, near Fort Lewis Army Base. Bradshaw was in the travel trailer himself when his hunting trailer was rocked violently, he said, and it wasn't funny. No doubt. Bigfoot showers camper with pebbles. In 2010, Bigfoot enthusiast and family friend Peter Williams complained constantly that I had neglected to upload his encounter. He was so irritated with me that finally he wagered me $100 that I wouldn't publish his story. He often took his teenage son camping at Patrick Creek Campground, which is 8 miles east of Gasquet, California. Gasquet? Whatever. On Old US 199. It's in the Smith River National Recreation Area. The attraction for them was the barrier-free hiking trail that he thought the best for teaching his young son the art of hiking. For years, I listened to him grumble about nothing ever happening to them while on their hiking campouts, not a stone thrown, and not a scream heard. And finally, one year, very late in the season, he took his wife along. She's a beauty contest winner from the Midwest. The young son was not with them. The first afternoon and night, there was just the two of them sitting around the campfire talking. The second night, he tinkered inside with the radio, and she busied herself around the campsite cooking and washing up, stowing away the garbage, and a little after 11 p.m., they retired inside their cab over camper. Within 30 minutes, rocks started raining down on the camper. Pete switched on the porch door light and stepped outside. He could see nothing, heard nothing. No rocks fell on him. Giving up, he retired again and went inside. No sooner than he closed the door and turned out the light than the rocks came flying in again. Whatever it was pushed on the camper but did not rock it. This went on until finally, irritated, he went outside and fired a round from a handgun. All went quiet, and it stayed that way. Pete believes the Sasquatch was interested in his wife, and the pebbles were in hopes of seeing her come outside, but she never did. That's a sign of a kind of a jealous guy, isn't it? So, Pete, there's your story. You owe me $100, buddy. That's from Bobby to him. It's kind of funny how your mind would call your wife's a beauty contest winner, and you automatically go to, they just want my wife. Well, I'm pretty sure that the rock throwing was at equal parties at the time. Sandy Glencross. This is titled More Camper Rocking. Sandy Glencross and other women were camping near Benton, New Hampshire in a Ford truck with a camper shell in the bed of her truck. The behavior of the Sasquatch she cited appears to be common among Sasquatch narratives. It's the rocking or pushing of cars, campers, RVs, and camper shells. She wrote in part, quote, in less than probably 5 minutes that camper started rocking back and forth as whatever was doing it wanted it to tip over. It rocked and rocked. I had my rifle in my hands, but was too scared to get out of the bed. We were frozen in fear. We thought, bear? I said, not. Whatever was rocking the camper... Hold on. Whatever was rocking the camper was pushing from the top. A bear would have taken their camp food, but this is no bear and no moose. Nothing other than a Bigfoot with the height and strength to rock my camper truck the way it did. We could hear it walking outside through the screen window near the top of the camper. Then it stopped and everything went silent. There were no scratch marks on the camper the next day. The only things touched were our nerves, and we were terrified. I know a few people who've been in vehicles, vans, campers, where they're being rocked. First hand heard from them. Sasquatch rocks truck violently. Ted Brock wrote, After driving all day and into the night, trying to get home from Thanksgiving one year, I pulled over to Doze for a while somewhere off Interstate 10 in New Mexico. It was a rest stop area, and when I drove in, there was only one other car in there, and I think they drove off as I fell asleep. I slept in the cab compartment of my two-door Chevy Colorado. Now, let me explain, Bobby. It's a two-door truck with stainless steel Nerf bars, which are like narrow running boards underneath each door, and a 3.5 suspension lift kit, okay? So when a 700-pound, 8-foot Bigfoot jumped up on the truck, you get the picture of how the truck leaned. Excuse me. So it's pitch dark. The dash clock says it's 2:30 a.m., and I'm awakened by this bruiser rocking the boat. Now you see, it was an intense way to be awakened. There wasn't much left to tell. The Bigfoot jumped on the rail board and rocked the truck back and forth with his weight alone. It felt violent, and it got my chicken skin working. You know, out of a sound sleep, you wake up fighting, looking out the driver's side window, and all I saw was his midsection, which was not very hairy, not like his arms and legs. Then, as fast as he started, he quit. That was it. I don't know where he went or why it happened, but I started up the truck and got out of there. There were no more other cars parked anywhere around, so it wasn't another person. Ted Brock, December 2nd, 2007. Here's another one. How do you stop? I mean, there's so many. Bobby dedicated so much of her life to this. Trash, bin, and dumpster divers, oh my, is the title of her next entry. Cindy Herold, a nurse and friend of mine who lives in Butte County, California, related an interesting story in 2010. Her story concerned a fellow who worked at the Mule Creek State Prison at Elk Creek. His name is Steve McCall, and he lived with his wife in the nearby city of Paradise in the northwest foothills of California's Central Valley on the Sierra Range. The McCalls were deeply religious and lived a very simple life in a remote area of the town. When Cindy met Steve, he told her he was deeply troubled and felt the devil was trying to get him. The subject became centered on Bigfoot. Steve said, "There's something outside at night where I live that knocks on my mobile home walls." Thus began Cindy's ongoing interest in Steve's observations. One incident Cindy learned about occurred when Steve and his wife left the windows open on hot summer nights, making it easy for them to hear the foot traffic running around outside. It started around midnight and continued until sunup. Steve told Cindy, "I could hear deer running, followed by something heavy on 2 legs run in one direction, then another came from another direction, and it's wild out there at night. I've heard stray dogs sound like they were getting killed in the brush, and it's a horrible sound." After months of listening to the night sounds, a night came when one of the big fellows came up on Steve's porch. Finally, Steve braved it, and getting up the courage, yanked open the curtains, and what he saw had a very large set of black-colored hands as it pushed off the window pane. At first, he said he thought it was a black man. In a momentary flash, he considered calling the police, but then coming out of his shock, he realized the hands were far too big to be anything but a Bigfoot. Time passed, and Steve finally got in touch with Cindy and told her about another incident with the Bigfoot. His second encounter came one night when he was locking up his chickens in the coop. Walking back to the house, he heard something crashing through the brush, and instinctively he swirled around, aiming his 1,000-candle power flashlight toward the racket, just in time to see a reddish-brown Bigfoot standing in the brush. He could see the top half and part of a thigh. Then, just as quickly, the creature was gone. Steve also told Sydney there was a large neighborhood trash bin receptacle where people were sometimes surprised by the Bigfoot. A peanut butter jar had been unscrewed and licked clean. The trash always looked like it had been gone through. Incidents like this happened often to the McCall couple in the woods that surrounded their trailer. And one year the visit stopped, and the night sounds were heard no longer. And it wasn't long before he heard a rumor that one of his distant neighbors shot a large bear trying to break into his mother's house. The mother said it was no bear. Steve believed the bear his neighbor shot to death was really the itinerant Bigfoot that frequented his trailer and the rest of the neighborhood that night. The body was never found, according to the neighbor. The Cindy Herald Story 2010. That was no bear, said the honest people, every time. It's always the honest people that say, nope, it was no bear. To the avid researcher, it seemed a familiar story. There are many narratives that define a given Sasquatch as a slick opportunist. It isn't hard to believe they find trash bins and rural garbage dumps a likely food source. They likely got a clue from watching bears pillaging trash cans. I heard from Cindy again in May 2011, and she had lost track of Steve and his wife. But stories from Butte County, California are many. So many. Funny, I told this a long time ago, but I was in Alaska, remote Alaska, offered up to be a cameraman for a friend of mine hunting grizzly bears, brown bears in Alaska in the springtime. And we went up, and there was the guide, long-term, big-time sheep guide, big game guide from Alaska, and we were talking, I brought this topic, obviously, and he said, nah, I don't believe in it. Oh, yeah, whatever. On we go, carrying on. And then a little while later, a few days later, whatever it was, he said, well, one time I was in Oregon at my friends of the family or something. And they had a rural property in Oregon. And he had a yellow lab. And he decided he wanted to go hike up to this peak. And then spend the night somewhere up there, whatever. Go up there. Obviously, it was a warm season. He said he went up there anyways. Got his dog. He's hiking back into the timber, made camp in his tent. And he said something circled his tent all night long, screaming like a frickin' woman getting murdered. He said the dog was absolutely terrified, and this thing just kept on circling around, screaming. But he doesn't believe in Sasquatch, but that's fine. But he did share that. You gotta wonder, in one of the stories just mentioned how it was there all night. It started at midnight, there all night, and then it stopped and the sun comes up. Well, don't you got anything better to do? Like, don't you get hungry? Shouldn't you be just like going to get a snack or something? I can't see anybody. There's another thing for me as I'm trying to figure out these habits or intentions. It's like, all right, you're going to actually go out of your way at midnight to start her up, tormenting the shit out of some campers in a camper, whatever, because it's funner than shit. And you're not going to get hungry or thirsty. And you're going to keep on doing it for 5 hours? That's really odd. Don't you think that's so weird? It's just so strange to me. Why? One more. Let's see if maybe I can get my mule deer cape done. Summarizing the following account related to me by two men fishing the Powell River in British Columbia. And this is titled, Gray White Sasquatch Throws Pine Boughs. Two anglers were sitting on a rock-strewn area of the Powell River, busily sorting through a tackle box. The sun was out, the morning was peaceful, except for the chatter of birds. His brother finally got up and waded out into the shallows and began fly casting. McIntosh tied the chosen fly onto his line and got up. And just then he said he heard a very loud crackling sound echo throughout the woods behind him. Quote, I turned to look in that direction, but inside the trees was very dark, pitch black in places, and I didn't see anything. But the sound was unmistakably out of place, and I'm thinking, Grizzly maybe? Checking to see where his brother was, he began casting. Crack! It happened again. Only this time the sound of the cracking was like the report of a bullwhip, causing me to whirl around and look in that direction again. It wasn't continual noise, but just a loud crack like a large breaking branch. Then the echo and the silence again. The informant's half-brother made his way back toward McIntosh, exclaiming, Did you hear that? A grizz, do you think? But we have the 44. The two men prepared to open up the tackle box again, and sifting through the drawers, located the firearm. They quickly loaded the .44 and set it atop of the tackle box, all the while keeping watch. According to their story, the silence continued for about 10 more minutes. Then, 2 quick snaps. Very loud snapping sounds were heard, and the thoughts of a tranquil day fishing the river ebbed away. Both men assured me there was no doubt there was a dangerous grizzly about the place. They wanted to fish. By that time, the 2 men were spooked. They moved back toward the firearm. They stopped, and suddenly, at the edge of the tree line, the 2 men saw what they described was a ghostly, hair-covered apparition moving out of the darkness of the trees and onto the beach of the Powell River. Listening to their story on the phone, Lou's voice became shaky as he retold the event. He described a very tall Sasquatch-looking giant emerging out of the tree line with a load of tree branches and pine boughs in his arms. They knew in an instant that the apparition-like figure was... They knew in an instant what the apparition-like figure was. The Bigfoot was enormous in height, definitely male, with, quote, gonads the size of grapefruits, end quote. The creature was thick of leg, a powerful chest, and the size of a giant alone caused them alarm. Quote, Bobby, he projected a powerful image standing there. I've never seen any man that big or ever dreamed of a man that big. He was very intimidating. It was the same feeling you might have if a giant Mack truck was barreling down on you with no chance of escape. I never want to see anything like that again, end quote. Let's go back to that one part of the sentence. I never seen any man that big or ever dreamed of a man that big. Just to make sure nobody missed that. The creature took a few more steps towards the anglers and began throwing the pine branches, the boughs, at the 2 with great accuracy. Next came a few sticks and twigs. Lou exclaimed that the creature was a head and chest taller than he was, much taller than they had ever heard of Sasquatch as being before. Clarence grabbed his firearm and, releasing the safety, discharged his weapon in the direction of the advancing Sasquatch, but he was admittedly so frightened for his life that he was sure the shot was off to the right because he heard it strike a tree trunk. Stunned by the noise of the gun, the Sasquatch looked, startled, and dropped the remaining pine boughs. The creature turned to walk back into the darkness of the woods. The 2 brothers were so disturbed by the event that they left behind 2 folding chairs in their haste to get away and back to their main camp, where their guide and other men were bivouacked. C and LM, 2001. I think these few examples give us an insight into Sasquatch's ability to throw things with a savage determination and doing it seemingly with some semblance of aggression and precision. There was some measure of conversation afterwards, and what would have happened if the first shot had hit the monster, and also the size of the tree branches thrown were more likely whole rims ripped off pine trees. There are other behaviors to consider. For example, should I keep going here? How long is this one going to be? I could read this forever, but I got it. Oh yeah, this is going to go on for 3 pages, this one. It's titled Bluff Charging. That's some scary shit. We'll save that right there for later on. Bluff charging. I think, wasn't Bobby, I'm not certain, but I'm pretty sure Bobby was on the wild animal camp side of what's possibly going on out there. I think so. I think she was. I think she wasn't a big fan of the supernatural aspects that were reported in, I don't think. Does it matter to me? Nope, not at all. Not at all. I don't care if you think they rode purple flying elephants around. It's fine with me. I don't give a shit what you need, but as long as everybody gets heard, I don't give a shit, because I know that as long as we keep hearing everyone get heard, then all the patterns are out in your face, and there's not much more you can do for backing up various aspects of the topic at hand, right? Now, I had a I'll admit it right now, I had a nightmare last night that scared the living shit out of me. It was so real, it's stupid. I don't know what time Sarah woke me up. I forget exactly where I was now. I was more vivid when I woke up, but I do remember seeing what I saw, and I think there's like 4 or 5 of these beings were in the timber ahead of me, and it was only like 12, 14-inch sized trees, well spaced, randomly spaced, not like they plant them that I've seen in the South States, but randomly, and not much underbrush, and I could see these beings, and one was grayish black, and he was kind of squatting up and down on purpose to make sure I saw him. And I remember feeling alarmed, scared shitless, and it was too real. And I remember I started to make sounds to try to scare them away. And I could feel my body going in somewhat of a paralysis. You know, when you're like, everything's going slow motion, you want to run, but you can't run. And then all of a sudden I woke up to Sarah going, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" She said, I guess the sounds I was making to try to scare them away, I was making out loud in bed last night. And it really freaked her, and Ruby was freaking out too. Oops. Weird, right? Random. I don't normally dream about this. But I remember when I was, when was this? I think it was when I was intentionally looking for them. I lived in Pemberton. I remember I kept on having dreams, very, very vivid dreams, very clear dreams of numerous forest beings being in my dream, and it wasn't pleasant. And then the dreams just went away. But whatever. Thought I'd share that random note. What else? I think that's about it. Hopefully I'm going to go out and try to get that. I really have to get that deer cape done. Because this happened to me before. I'd been thawing out. And then by the time I got to it, the outside hair started pulling off. Before it was thawed enough for me to finish all the goods. And I don't want that happening again. I hate wasting anything. So there. Then what? Oh, but the point I was making, sharing the dream thing, I was awake at night, and there is so many highway sightings between here and Tofino on the highway at night and day. It's absolutely just stupid. It's stupid. And I was almost thinking pretty soon of Sarah's game. Excuse me. I'm thinking maybe one night we'll wait until the traffic's dead. And maybe we'll just drive the highway for the hell of it. You know what I mean? And you know what else I could do possibly? Well, everybody would be in bed, though. So that would be a waste of time. Because I could put the Starlink in the back of the truck like I did coming home. And then stream it live and show you guys that drive at night. But maybe I'll just record it. I guess I could throw the 360 camera on the truck. That thing records for 9 hours. And then just take your time and do that drive at nighttime. For the hell of it, right? I don't think that's intrusive or too much intent. Not like I used to do years back. It's just, we're going to go for a drive down the highway. If you happen to be there, you happen to be there, but that's your choice. I'm not going to the woods looking for your ass, trying to get you photographed. But I've always had that slight thought sitting on a shelf in the back of my head to possibly just drive to Tofino late at night one time, just for the hell of it. Back again. Anyway. There you go. More voices heard. Great to hear from Bobby. And hear from MK Davis in a way. Haven't heard from MK in a while, and I don't even know what he's up to. I'm sure he's still active. And I'm going to get motoring and get some stuff done. Maybe it'll stop raining and get even more stuff done. And maybe do a little adventure tomorrow, maybe. I don't know. But I'll be back again. Can't make it stop. Share my story, howtohunt.com. Already mentioned it. These 2 hats are on sale right now. I think until Monday or something. What else am I supposed to share with you guys? Fishing. Fishing is on. She's answering emails. People are booking it up. And all that link is below, or just go to my website. I never even pushed people towards my website, do I? Whatever. You go check out howtohunt.com and find links to everything else you might be curious about there. There you go. Share my story. Share your story. Get it shared. Talk to you later. These are elk beds. Oh, show. See that? Look at all the tracks in it.
From deer? deer and elk. Look at the size of this bed. Oh yeah, there's beds everywhere in here. Here, there, there. Well, this is the area. Bubs. Come here. She's smelling the shit out of them. Come here. Oh, I dug that out. Holy, there's beds everywhere in here. Huh. Wow. Interesting. This is like the loop. Huh. Yeah, you'd never sneak up on them on here, would you? Yeah, she's smelling them all over.
What is it? What's that?
Come here. No, this way. This way. Come here, come here. This way. This way. We're gonna be coming up to the road pretty quick.